Hey guys, welcome to another video. This is VaulSC. Hope your day is going well. We're going to take a look at a bat rep, a game of infiNity between Onyx, Contact Force, and the Nomads. It will be on the mission Supremacy. Now, this is going to be a bit of a special one because for this game I'm going to be trying out and testing an army list which I showcased on a previous episode of Let's Build Some Lists, my YouTube video series in which I run you through some lists from scratch and talk about my list building process. It won't be one of the lists from the recent episode. We're going to go back a couple of episodes to the one where I showcased a really interesting and fascinating Onyx list that is mostly about hacking and cyber war, and this game will be a demonstration of two things. Number one, the fact that it actually kind of works. The theme and the strategy of the list is kind of practical, for lack of a better word. But the other thing it'll demonstrate is that it still isn't a very viable and competitive list, and there are some real problems. So I think you guys will enjoy going through this bat rep and sort of seeing firsthand how that really works out. So just to remind you, this is the list here. It's called infowar. And if you want more detail about this list and building it, I'd recommend going back a couple of episodes through to, I think, Let's Build Some Lists number 8, if I recall correctly. But the basic idea here is that Kurnow, being in the Link team, has a pitcher. He's quite reliable at flying a repeater all the way over their side of the table where it will be in range of enemy hackers. That'll extend his hacking range and the hacking range of everybody else. If just he activates, he's the only one triggering the ARO. He can quite easily beat up their enemy hacker, unless it also is in a Link team and has all various other buffs, but even then he has an advantage. Kurnow can hit them with Maestro, and he has a deflector in his Link team, and if they're not a killer hacker, they're going to be going back through the firewall. So once he's accomplished that, and bear in mind that the E-drone allows him to re-roll hacking attempts with a command token, which can actually be rather clutch. But the other thing is that there's all these assault hackers, the Umbra assault hacker, 2 Rodox, and you've even got the E-drone itself there. And the idea is that the Evo repeater allows you to do coordinated hacking, so you can spend a command token. All of the assault hackers put Spotlight and Oblivions on things, or the E-drone can use Exile, and it can be a real nightmare. Also, the T-drone list 2, in Group 2, can be used on a targeted model after they spotlight it. It's good against tags. The Echidrons can replenish Kurnow's pitches. I won't talk too much more about it. We will just get into the game, but it's a very interesting list that you kind of want to only crank out on certain opponents. Now, I knew that my opponent would be playing Nomads, so I decided to finally give this list a go. Having said that, for this particular game, he showed up with a bit of a different kind of Nomad list, ended up using a very big spammy list with very few hackable things, and that's okay. The hackable things that were there were still relevant, and you'll see a bit more about how this works during the game. I haven't shown my opponent's list here because I can't exactly remember everything that was in it, but it went into like 3 combat groups. He just took all the cheap stuff, and the weaknesses of his list were that he really had no long-range guns except for one Securitate HMG, and normally you'd want to invest in like an Intruder or a Cruiser, but didn't do that. And just really had no MSV2 in his list whatsoever. So we'll talk more about that as the game progresses, but the mission is Supremacy, so I'll just give you guys a quick refresher on that mission. So once again, it's a quadrant-style mission. The edge of the table is here, by the way, and the edge of the deployment zone is around about here, and you've got the 4 objectives in the 4 different quadrants, and at the end of every game round, you're trying to get more of the quadrants, and you get them by having a larger quantity of points in them. So if you've got one very expensive model or lots of very inexpensive models, they all add up. And if I've got 3 of them, for example, and you only have the 1, then I get a couple of objective points permanently. You can also press the buttons in the zones, and they can also yield you points. So that's the basic gist of it for those who haven't played it. Alright, so I did win the Lieutenant role, and I did opt for first turn, which is usually a mistake on this mission because it's a much easier mission to complete with second turn. So normally I wouldn't recommend going directly for first turn. However, this list kind of requires me to. I really want to sort of get something happening with the hacking. So due to this experiment, I decided to make that move, although that will prove costly. As you can see, the game turns into a bit of a struggle as a result of that later, but we'll talk about that. Okay, my deployment from right to left. This is the right-hand corner. I've got my HVT way out there. My classified is one that involves willpower check on an unconscious model. There's an Imatron back here, Icadron. This is the E-Drone Evo repeater back here, the only Evo repeater to come with a combi rifle, by the way. That's my Umbra Samaritan with hacking device. I've got my Rodoc hacker. The Rodocs are kind of useful in this mission because they're medium infantry and they have forward deployment, allowing them to just start in the zone, so you can spend your orders on other things and have them have their juicy points in that that quadrant ready to be added to the score after the first game round. Then the large clump of guys on the left-hand side of the table, you can see the link team there, and we'll go into a bit more close-ups, but the other Rodoc is on the left-hand side doing a similar thing out beyond the zone. Hope you guys like the watery table, by the way. I don't play on this one very often because it's a bit weird, but sometimes it's a good bit of fun. Okay, so link team, I'm saving Kurnow as the reserve trooper, something, again, I wouldn't normally do, but it's really quite important for me to put him in a position where he can fire the pitches across the table without attracting the attention of something like an intruder sniper. So I want to see where he deploys first. We do have the Lieutenant Nexus on top of the building, though, plus Dr. Worm prone up here. An Icadron on the staircase, that's important because it provides the repeater for the E-Drone to put assisted fire on the Plasma Sniper who's here. That's important. And also because Kurnow is likely to be on the rooftop, and the Icadron may be needed to replenish his pitcher supply with baggage because he runs out of them quite quickly. Close-up of our Samaritan friend and his Rodoc friend, represented by a Yowgat. The other Imatron is scattered over his side of the table, so that'll die quite quickly. Alright, my opponent from right to left, he's got tons of stuff deploying down here. So we've got Flashball Spot far right. We've got Jaguar here. We've got a 6-point Morlock. I believe they all have the EM close combat weapons. Some kind of Zero out here. You've got, this is a Moran Fort Observer, I believe, with some crazy koalas. By the way, I read that thread on the forum by, I think it was Deforation. Hilarious with how the rules interactions with mines work. Anyway, we'll talk about that another day. Alguacile, another Morlock on the rooftop. Everything's going prone, by the way, after this photo gets taken. That's the right-hand flank. Towards the middle, we've got way more guys here. So there is another Moran back here, plus more crazy koalas, plus the Krakot with double chain rifles, my least favorite profile. We have another Morlock here, a Daktari. There's going to be a Securitate HMG as a reserve trooper next to that. There's Alguacil back here, so I suspect that's his lieutenant. He's got another Jaguar and an Interventor back here, plus the Puppet Master guy that gives you counterintelligence without any puppet bots. We've talked about that, haven't we? Interventor back here is not the Killer Hacker Interventor, so he's going to be one of my immediate targets for removal. But yeah, we just talked about most of the stuff. There's a Liberto with a mine around here. There's a Zero with, I believe, boarding shotgun further outfield. Another flash spot. I believe there's another Morlock and another Alguacile. So you can see it's just a real spam Nomad list. I really don't like this list. There's no reason for you to want to go to like 23 models. This list becomes so much better if you just shave off some of the additional orders, bring it down to about 16 or 17 orders total, including irregulars, and have a couple of beefy pieces there which can be fueled. The thing about spam lists is that you're going to need something to do the work, and if your most powerful pieces just trade with the enemy straight away and just die, then your massive amount of orders aren't really fueling into anything. So that's one of the problems. Hakislam can sometimes get away with it because it's quite easy to keep fueling your orders into the Daylamis and to the Fides and to the things that follow up on them, and there are waves of attacks. With Nomads, I just don't feel that happening as convincingly. You kind of want to invest a bit more in something which can actually spend your very cheap and very effective regular orders. Don't forget there's a bounty hunter for some reason on top there who rolls up like a breaker rifle or something dumb, and this model here, I think, if I recall correctly, is another Zero. Can't 100% remember. The Zero Killer Hacker, I think. Yeah, so a bit of a top-down view of all of his markers and crap. My reserve trooper, the Kurnow, you always take him an Onyx. He's just too good not to take. Really, really strong character. And there we go. So my starting order pool has 10 and 6, as you saw. My opponent immediately spends a command token to reduce my group 2. And he's doing that because he's seen my video, he understands what my list is supposed to do. He's afraid of that missile launcher firing too many missiles at him, which I think is a mistake from him. I would have definitely docked group 1, but he's taken them away from group 2, which is fine. So, assisted fire goes straight onto the Unidron with a plasma sniper from group 2, and then group 1 spending on the Unidron just to shuffle everybody around. Kernel goes a bit further out, the Unidron moves up. The only thing watching the table is the one bounty hunter, which he was hoping might get a Panzerfaust or something, but either way, the Unidron just clears him up very easily and convincingly. That then allows me to move Kernel out and fire a couple of pitches. These blue pebbles represent where the pitches are. That is meant to get them into range of this interventor here, so I can clear them out with some hacking. It's not going to be completely easy, but it is doable. And then the fun thing I can do next is try for the spotlight onto his Securitate, and then fire the missiles at it with the guided missile, and hopefully eliminate not just him, but the Dactari standing next to him. And after that happens, with no HMG there, he's not going to be able to contest that Unidron sniper at all, which is going to be a great outcome. Even with the HMG surviving, it's going to be a tough ask. I mean, we're talking Bliss skill 12, 4 dice versus effectively 17s on 2 dice. That's pretty ugly. So the pitches go down. We then have a hacking war between Kernel and the Interventor. Now, Interventor does have Sucker Punch, which I forgot about, and the Interventor does have BTS 9. The thing is, though, Maestro is Breaker, so that really helps. And, you know, we're talking about an enemy model that's having to go up against, you know, the Maestro -3, the Deflector -3 from the Link team, and the Firewall from the Repeater -9. So, although it takes Kernel a couple of attempts, and he does get a little bit unlucky with the hacking initially in terms of the killing, he does wipe out the Interventor. We do have the Doctor nearby to revive him if something went wrong, by the way. So that allows us to reposition, and we move the sniper right over to the ledge there where you can see most of the table, and that's going to be awesome. Interventor over here, we've got a picture of him, but he dies pretty quickly. The next thing that happens is that I spend a command token on group 1 with a order to do a coordinated order. The Evo Repeater E-Drone allows for coordinated hacking, which is super cool, and I almost never do this in any game, but we finally get to see it happen. So you've got the Umbra Samaritan Assault Hacker and both Rodok Assault Hackers all doing a coordinated hack onto this guy right here. I should point this way on my bat rep. The Securitate HMG, and with 3 of them doing it, it's so much more efficient and reliable to actually get it to happen, despite the -3 for the hacking attempt, willpower. So he immediately gets targeted, and that allows us to let rip with this T-drone over here, firing his missiles. The Securitate, I believe, is -3 to dodge because he can't see the missiles coming. He's lost his only hacker, so he does not get to use the U-turn hacking program, and that's another cool feature of the list, is that you use the repeaters to take out their hackers first. Maestro sometimes will allow you to make that hacker unconscious, so it's even easier to spotlight it and then rain missiles on it. But one of the few moments in my infiNity career here, we finally get to fire guided missiles at a targeted opponent, and boom, splat, that happens, and these guys just get pulverized. Both of them get destroyed by it, which was very satisfying indeed. So we've killed his Bounty Hunter, we've killed his Interventor, we've killed the Securitate, we've killed the Dactari at very minimal risk to us. Cool. I also moved the Echidron from Group 2 over to this part of the battlefield here where it's going to be in the zone. It's got baggage. It's going to be able to put its points in there. That's going to be quite crucial because with his ability to take the second turn in every game round, it's going to be quite easy for him to just shift models into zones and win. And despite my really fancy, cool plays, it's going to be quite hard to stop him, to be honest. Alright, Samaritan, with some orders remaining in Group 1, uses Super Jump to fly up onto this building here. His target is going to be the enemy Krakot. So once he Super Jumps from here and then leapfrogs up to here, he's going to be able to jump up a little bit higher and target this guy off in the distance with his Plasma Carbine. I believe he's the only Umbra profile to actually have that gun. You've got to take an Assault Hacker. So we're flying across the battlefield, leaping up just high enough to be able to see this guy's base, even though he's prone next to a wall. He did roll up something like Climbing Plus. That's not going to help him against this. The plasma goes off and wipes him out. Then we reposition him and go into suppression fire, and then shortly afterwards I realized, oh shit, I can't actually do suppression fire because he's got a plasma carbine, not a plasma gun. There is a difference. Cannot go suppression fire with this weapon, so we removed this token shortly after the photograph was taken. So, that was a really fun turn, really exciting stuff. Got to actually see the list do the things that I was fantasizing about it actually doing, which was really cool. The problem is that my opponent's still got tons of orders and has the second turn, so getting points is going to be pretty easy for him, sadly. Okay, so after some shuffling around, he's got 8 regular orders plus a couple of irregular orders, and one of them is going to be shifted to the next group. So I've killed a bunch of models, but he's got all the stuff left. Fortunately for me, the Unidron Plasma Sniper is completely uncontested and can see most of the Morlocks as they move out. The first one is the one that can't be seen, so it's heading towards the middle of the table, where it will basically put a smoke cloud through here, protecting from the Unidron, which is off in the distance. But elsewhere, you've got the Samaritan firing long range with a plasma carbine at this Morlock over here, killing it, thank goodness. Over here, this one taking on the plasma sniper, also dying because it's up against a Unidron with plasma carbine poking out from the corner of the building as well. And then after the carnage of the Morlocks, in fact, he only restrained one of them. The other two of them died. One got restrained, another one didn't get shot at. So then we have the actual turn where he's moving this camo marker, which turns out to be a Liberto closer to my line. And even though it's just a 10-point Liberto and I've done so much damage to him, this is still enough because, number one, Liberto's way too overpowered, way too broken. You take them in every list that you can. And secondarily, he doesn't need much to be able to beat me in the active turn when he's got the advantage there of the tempo. So this thing just keeps coming on closer. I believe I initially had to go at discovering once he came in range because I knew that it was unlikely for him to do 2 wounds on my Samaritan and I needed to slow him down. I do have a flamethrower nearby. So I go for the discover, kind of regretting it a little bit after he just shotguns me, but the Liberto firing the shotgun manages to get no damage on the Samaritan. And to be fair, I mean, this guy's bliss skill isn't the greatest. He's got 2 shots. I am in cover. I do have the benefit of armor. I do have base armor too. It's just a light shotgun. So not unheard of to survive that, and luckily I managed to. As he moves up, though, he's thinking about getting the shotgun blast onto these guys, the Imatron and the Echidron. Now, I've kind of screwed myself a little bit here because the Imatron is blocking the line of sight from the Echidron to the Liberto's position. But with the Samaritan being in the spot that he is, I can return fire with the plasma carbine, meaning that I'll be on 1 dice hitting on a 15. A hit is likely to, cause some damage there because it's plasma. He probably will have dogged, but at least he'll die at the end of the turn. And he'll be firing back on, I think, 14s on 2 dice. So 1 dice 15, 2 dice 14s. It's actually kind of close. You're definitely not sort of at a 60-40, 70-30 kind of advantage with those numbers. I haven't looked it up in Dice Calculator, but I know it's not extremely high for doing wounds onto the Umbra, and it certainly isn't likely to do 2 wounds in one go. Once he does take a single wound, he can drop back behind cover and wait for the Liberto to pop back around. Another cool option I have here is just dodging with hyperdynamics. I've got a pretty good flash pulse as well, but I'm going for the plasma carbine because I want to actually destroy him. I don't want him actually ending the turn in the quadrant after killing everything and having his points there. So we continue fighting. At one point he does fire a single shotgun blast through these guys and the other round at the Samaritan, which I thought was a mistake because he's making it even more likely that he loses the Liberto. If I'd been in his position, I would have tried to knock back the Umbra and force him into cover first and then dealt with these guys in that particular order. But he decided to split burst. Now, I was having all kinds of interesting luck here. I managed to lose some face-to-face rolls, but I passed a lot of armor saves here. The Unidron wasn't as lucky. Sorry, the Echidron, I believe that did take some damage at some point. I lost the Imatron pretty early into it. I lost the Imatron before the Echidron, though, so we reached a position where if the Liberto was to continue any further, it would have got flamethrowered. So to interrupt that, he's now got his Morlock over this side of the battlefield, throwing a smoke grenade here. Note that the Unitron is in this position up there, able to fire through that angle, so he has to smoke off this point and then move around here to go after the Umbra Samaritan. So that's the play at the moment. Liberto continuing to move forward. Now, I believe that the Morlock actually came around the corner into line of sight of the Umbra, so I decided to use a dodge at long range to stay in line of sight of the Liberto, but pull back away from where the Morlock was able to see him. So this smoke grenade goes down, and then we have the Morlock coming in, trying to get closer to the Samaritan, but the Samaritan continuing to dodge and avoid. At some point, we do get hit here, so the Liberto taking a wound from, I believe, the flamethrower of the Echidron. So that happened. Still hasn't got enough orders to come up here and clean these two guys up. So elsewhere, we've got, I believe, the Dactari moving out. Sorry, I made a mistake in my reporting earlier. I said that my missile from the T-drone had destroyed the Securitate and the Dactari. That's actually not the case. Dactari, I believe, survived. It's just that the Securitate went straight to dead without leaving a corpse. So he does have a Dactari able to shoot at the Imatron here, just trying to get some points on the board. Almost running out of orders here. He does try to move in the Moran with combi rifle over to this spot here to try and go after the Samaritan. But even that doesn't quite work. The combi rifle just failing against his flash pulse or super dodge or whatever he's got there. But he does manage to bring in the crazy koalas, which will kind of affect me a little bit, because if I super jump out, I'm going to get hit by both crazy koalas if I don't dodge correctly, and that could mean the end of the Samaritan. Right over here, again, my memory of the turn was a bit hazy. The Echidron did survive some of the Liberto's attacks, and apparently all of them. The Morlock does come around here, though, and fires the pistol. So we eventually get to the end of the turn with the Morlock having been destroyed, I think, and the Liberto being in dogged state, and the Morlock and the Moran just hiding back behind the corner. And that ends it. So after game round 1, I've prevented him from getting any additional points for capturing my zones, because we had 2 zones each at the end of the game round. Neither of us have pressed any buttons, and I'm doing pretty well in terms of attrition, because I've killed quite a lot of his army, some of it in my turn, some of it in his turn. I've got a pretty big order pool left. Entirely Group 1 is okay, so feeling pretty good about this game, but again, I've got to make it last in the long run. So Group 2, E-Drone pulling back, sorry, Group 1, E-Drone pulling around the corner and firing his combi rifle at the Moran. I want to do this first because this will allow me to take out the Moran, hopefully, and the crazy koala that's nearest to the Samaritan. And if I'm able to shoot them with other things, then the Samaritan can be let free and start moving around. So E-Drone pulls around, does get lucky enough initially when he's shooting from behind cover to kill the Moran out in the midfield. Another corpse, we're liking that, and then he can move out. He's going to go towards this billboard here to move his points into the zone, but shooting the crazy koala as he does so ends up there. We also moved the T-drone as part of Group 2 over to this spot, allowing the T-drone's points to go into the zone and also cover off a long lane here, noting that our opponent just doesn't have any long-range guns. Even a Burst 1 missile will be very effective against all of the cheerleaders running around the battlefield at this point. So, our damaged Umbra Samaritan, who, survived, he was a champ, he took hits from lots of different things, only suffered 1 wound, so he did get lucky. This has been a lucky game for me so far, but we are playing into turn 2, and the Umbra jumps up here, flies around, and fires his plasma carbine into that other crazy koala, which got set in place before the Moran died, mind you. So that allows me to continue moving around. There was a mine that he discovers on his path across the battlefield, meaning that if I'm going to go after the corpse of this Krakot to regain my wound, I don't want to come too close around here because dying against that mine is really not what I want. So we're going to head around this direction and basically eat this guy for dinner and revitalize ourselves. As we do so, the Samaritan flying through the battlefield, such a badass model by the way, fires his plasma carbine at one of the other crazy koalas from the other Moran on the other side of the table before just swooping up here and basically reviving himself by eating the corpse of that Krakot. And they're just going prone here. The beauty of this play is that we're setting up heavily for the next turn where he's basically got range. It's like a fueling station for him, really. Literally as a fueling station where he can start jumping around and killing other things in my last turn. But also, if my opponent doesn't deal with him, that's 43 points in one of his zones, and he's got such a a small number of points invested into each model that he's going to need so many guys to come in here and actually stop me from scoring, so that's part of it. Also moving up with one of my Rodox to press the button on one of these zones, just in case it turns out to be a draw in the long run. If we both don't score enough from each other's zones, the consoles will be the tiebreak. So that's what he's doing right here, under the shadow of this beautiful Unidron Plasma Sniper, who's just got such great free reign over this table. Okay, turn 2 for Nomads. The Morlock moves out, gets blasted by the Unidron immediately, but not before throwing smoke onto the low ground. We then have one of his camo markers moving around, and this is quite fun because it starts around here, moves around the side, and can actually use the ladder on the side of this box to move down here, and it's going to eventually come after my E-drone. So, kind of worried about this. Even though I've got a really cool Unidron out there, he's got a lot of camo markers, and the Unidron's not going to be very good at revealing them long range. And just 1-0 should be enough to beat off a lot of my units at close range. The other problematic thing here is that he can use a shotgun to take both of these models out. In fact, I think the Echidron had already been damaged, so, you know, at this sort of range, a 0 boarding shotgun with surprise attack got cover up against 1 E-drone with a combi rifle. I can't hack him, he just appears here and blasts me, and that's the right play. And this is solid here from Nomads. It's not fancy play, it's just the right thing to do. He then moves up around here, going after the boarding shotgun Rodoc on this side of the table. This is a bit more of a difficult target because he's not using surprise attack anymore for some reason. Like, he could, but he isn't. I do have mimetism this time, and I also have a boarding shotgun. So the odds are a little bit weaker to take me out, but still, he does get the shots through. I've been very lucky elsewhere in the game. I can't expect to get lucky all the time. Rodoc goes down. Can't really be mad at that. He's made the play. And the good thing about what he's doing here is he's going to end the turn with the 0 in one of my zones, leaving me with only the other one on the other side available. He does have to contend with the Umbra on his side of the table, but if he can do that, then he's going to go up 2 points versus my 1 point for my 1 console. So yeah, the Rodoc does die here. Now, here's the Umbra, and he's got to basically move in with a Jaguar, so that's one of the things that moves out. He does have a couple of other models nearby, though, so let's see what he does about it. There's an Alguacil here, there's a Dactari, just can't really get over there, so on the other side of the table, moving out with his 0 behind this little billboard, that's not really going to matter. He's got that table side either way, and he's never going to be able to get my one on this quadrant because I've got the entire link team there. So back to the Umbra, who's on this building right up here. He's moving out coordinated orders with the Jaguar, throwing a smoke grenade down here so I can't see it with things, and moving up with the Puppet Master and one of his camo markers. So this is it. He's got 1 Jaguar, 1 Puppet Master, and 1 0 with, I believe, a killer hacking device. For some reason, decides now is not the right time to go after the Umbra, and I think he decided that because he was worried that I would just hack him too easily later in the game. I feel like the best play here would have been to use the 0 killer hacker to kill my assault hacker right there and then, because that was his best opportunity to do that. He sort of faces the risk of the Umbra moving somewhere else after this. And again, this sort of highlights one of the weaknesses of, you know, assault hackers in general, and one of the problems with this list is that, yeah, you can hack them from long range, but as soon as you go out and do any normal fighting against the most basic of cheerleaders, that points investment wasn't worth it. So he moves everybody into this quadrant. This is the same quadrant as the Umbra. And we tally up the points, and we go through it carefully, and my opponent double checks it for me, and it turns out, and this is actually a hugely pivotal moment in this game, but it turns out that we both have exactly 43 points in that one quadrant, which is a big deal, because I've got 1 quadrant on my side of the table, he's got 1 quadrant on his side of the table, but he's got a 0 in an empty quadrant on my side of the table. So in order for me to keep it as a draw, I need to actually have more points in this zone than him. So the fact that I don't, I'm short by 1 point. It means that he now flips the scoreboard and goes up 2-1 in terms of objective points, which is a big deal. It means I need a really strong final turn, which I'm prepared to have a go at, but you can sort of see how even though you can kick ass, you can just crush your opponent in terms of attrition and, you know, killing important models. Missions like this really just come down to being in an easy, favorable position to swing things at your leisure some of the time. You've got to be a lot more decisive than this if you're going first turn. And the very decisive kinds of things that I am doing with hacking and so forth just don't really work against an opponent that's not particularly vulnerable against hacking. And when the things that you're hacking and messing up are just such a small section of your list, it's just not going to be enough. Anyway, the plan here is to contest this quadrant here with some of my cheaper stuff, move the entire Unidron Link team over here and destroy his Zero shotgun, and then basically set up a nest on top of this building here, blow up his Jaguar and Puppet Master, and keep the Umbra Samaritan in that zone, and basically watch the entire table and swing the points back at the end. So here's the team trooping across the bridge, coming towards this guy who's prone. Unfortunately, we have to get Kurnow in there face first against a boarding shotgun, but he is fully linked with a plasma gun and does blow up the boarding shotgun. Especially considering that rather than firing back with his boarding shotgun, he just laser mine, which is a good play. It means that I kind of have to just try and detonate it with Kurnow in my active turn, which is a bit of a risk. So he's played that well. Kurnow does have hyperdynamics though, and he's got a little bit of armor, so the odds of me actually not dying to the mine are pretty good. Like, we're talking 70-80% chance of me surviving through this. It is a risk. I do have a command token left to continue moving the Unidrons out by themselves, but that wouldn't be ideal. So we all set up in this position here where we can watch the rest of the table. And quite crucially, and this is an important play here, moving the Unidron up here to get line of sight to his Jaguar, and that is going to cause splash damage onto the Puppet Master behind that, and it's really going to mean that this is the only model he's going to have handy. So that should be a game-winning move. Unfortunately, I don't have assisted fire from the Evo repeater because it died last turn. So it's 14s if I'm in the correct range, but it's not. It turned out to be just shy of 16, so I was on 11s on 3 dice, and the Jaguar wins with the smoke grenade. So that was a shame. I was lucky for most of this game. This is not really a particularly unlucky thing to happen. It was just one of the common results, so I can't really beat myself up too much or get mad about that. But I gave it a good shot, and if I'd killed those 2 models there with a Plasma Sniper, I would have given myself a pretty good chance. Now, one fun thing I did here, like this is them consolidating their position, by the way, just setting up for that reactive turn, but Lieutenant Order also being spent on this guy just to move out, watch the table, put his points in the zone, no reason not to. But the fun thing I did at the start of this turn was to actually spin a command token moving the Umbra Samaritan from Group 1 to Group 2, which has less orders. And I did that just because Group 2 wasn't going to get anything done, and I couldn't move anything from Group 2 to Group 1 because there were no slots available. The only dead things were corpses, if that makes sense to you guys, if you understand what I mean by that. But Group 2 now has 4 orders on this Samaritan, who is able to move out, and there's a smoke grenade there, and his plan is to move through and use Protheon to destroy these 2 models and end up in this zone anyway. This is where my opponent plays his ace card that he's been saving for a while and reveals the Killer Hacker with the 0 there, just at the same time that a mine is detonating from that particular spot. This was the Liberto laying the mine earlier. So I'm in the very unfortunate position of having to either dodge or reset or hack him back. So I'm either going to take the mine or the hacking attempt. I decided to go with the dodge against the mine. And that's because I felt like I'd at least have a chance of the 0 either failing the the whip check to get me, or passing one of the BTS saves, and I've got BTS 3. Part of the thinking here is that he's going for a red rum, and if I just ignore the red rum and try and dodge the mine, I'm not at -3 because of the red rum. I'm still at -3 because of the mine, but I've got the +3 for dodging, so I felt like that would be okay. So what happens here is that I do indeed get hit by the red drum. He rolls a 13 or less, and I do take 1 wound, and I pass the other one, so I'm back to NWI. Still a really bad situation, though. The mine's gone. I now move into close combat with the Jaguar. The thinking here is that I'll again take another hit from the red rum. But if I beat the Jaguar and pull wounds off of him, that again might be enough for me to survive. The Jaguar is martial arts level 1, which is painful, but I'm Protheon level 4 with CC24. So there is a shot, there's a hope at doing this. Unfortunately though, Umbra comes in and just whiffs the rolls, two very low rolls, and the Jaguar beats him. He's got to take the double action hit from the Jaguar and the Red Rum at the same time. Umbra dies, and that's it, game over there, because my opponent is already up on points, just needs to, you know, stay where he is and do nothing, and he automatically wins. So, well played to my opponent. This was a fun game, not really a serious competitive game in terms of what's happening here. This was a great chance to, first of all, test the strategy of running this list into pretty much anything, you know, no matter what. Realistically, you'd only want to play this kind of Onyx list against a sectorial where you can leverage the E-drone using Exile or Link Team, or enemy lists which you know are going to be very hackable, or missions like Transmission Matrix. That's where a list of this caliber, you know, is useful, and even then you've got to play it well and be a little bit lucky. So we learnt that, you know, in this sort of situation, you know, not the best list. Secondarily, my strategy of trying to force this and take first turn no matter what to try and get the lead with the hacking and the assisted fire kind of fell flat in his face because of the list my opponent was playing. Lots of camo markers, lots of chaff, lots of smoke. Just too easy for him to outmaneuver this kind of Onyx list and get into the zones. So despite my opponent, you know, kind of making a few mistakes and not playing super well, it wasn't that hard for him to just beat this sort of strategy at the end of the day. I do believe I probably made a few mistakes during this game, here and there. There are a few things I probably didn't need to do, position that I could have got a little better, but that's fine. Really had a blast, love playing Onyx, and hopefully Corvus Belli changes up hacking quite a bit in the next edition just to make a lot more stuff like this viable, because it's just super fun. See you guys next time.